I wish to thank all of you for coming. We had 2 big days, big program, many films. We had program yesterday, we have program today, and I'm really happy because I can feel that people really like our festival. We have many words and many written notes about this. They like the variety of the programs, they like, you know, very fresh films they have no chance to see in any other place. I was very happy to work on this program because I decided that it's very interesting opportunity to introduce new directors, Israeli and a few American, also actress we have a new one, like upcoming faces of our future film. And I'm very happy to introduce now Olga Gershenzon, who is our academic advisor, professor of Judaic and Near Eastern Studies at Massachusetts Amherst University. So she would be a moderator of this panel.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You're such troopers, you know, for staying up until 7. So let me briefly introduce the panelists and then I will kind of ask my questions. So this is Anna Fickman. This is, so you'll know her as a star of film Broccoli, and to my right is George Itzhak, the filmmaker of Broccoli. And Laura Wagner, whose short story the film is based, and Dean Movshevitz, did I screw up?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, okay. Who is responsible for media and film, and he is a representative of Israeli consulate in New York. And the consulate of the festival. So this festival started 4 years ago when we noticed the first one was in 2010, I checked. So this is the 5th, but it's 4th, right? But it's 4 years ago. So that's just how the math works. So when we noticed that something interesting is happening, right? And now there are Russian immigrant characters not just on screens, as if represented by other filmmakers, but also behind the cameras. And the festival since then welcomed several of them, some older generation, right? Slava Yulina Chaplin. Slava has since passed away, and then the younger generation like Leon Prudovsky and Pini Tavger and so many others. And then we noticed one more thing. Let me backtrack for a second. So since late 1990s, there's been an explosion of Russian Jewish American literature, right? Gary Steingart, Laura Wapner, Anya Lilich, so many others. But we haven't seen much by way of film. And then, the most recent development is that we started slowly seeing that apparently there is also sort of Russian immigrant, Jewish and not Jewish diasporic cinema, and this is why the festival has now changed its title, right? And some of these films are appearing, kind of arriving to us by way of literature. So the Broccoli is a prime example, right? So Lara Wagner and George Itzhak. David Bismosgis is making into film now his famous, best-selling probably, book of short stories, Natasha. Vladimir Kamener, an author of this really popular short story collection, is a Russian-German Jewish writer called Rus and Disco. Now this collection has been made into a film as well. So there is some sort of interesting connection between literature and film on the one hand, and on the other hand, this Russian immigrant kind of diasporic film scene apparently is here. Okay, so I want to open this panel with a question about the future, and obviously no one has a crystal ball, right? But if you can all kind of speculate and think about the future of this Russian Jewish or Russian not Jewish diasporic cinema. There is a question of sources, right? Is it based on literary sources, on history, on personal history? There is a question of generation. Is it younger generation that's picking up a baton from the older generation? And finally, there is a question of voice and style. Is there something unique or something particular about this kind of Russian accented cinema? So, throwing the question at you, and we'll go from there, and then we'll open for Q&A from the audience.
I guess I'll start. I don't know much about Russian in the diaspora cinema. I mean, I know that Leviathan is getting a lot of great reviews this year. It's a Russian movie. It's Russia's Oscar submission. I can say that in Israel, we're starting to see a little more slowly movies made by Russian immigrants and dealing with Russian immigrants. We had the Human Resource Manager a couple of years ago, and I think, Regina, you showed Room 514, which I really like. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's a psychological thriller based in the office of the military police in Israel, where this very strong sort of Clarice Starling investigator, who's a Russian immigrant, played by Asya Neifeld, tries to crack down on a military officer who's hiding something. I'm not sure if Sharon was. Do you remember if Sharon Raziv, the director, was he Russian? I don't think he is.
No, he's not Russian.
He's not.
So this is actually an example of something that we've seen now since 1990s. This is a depiction of a Russian immigrant on screen. This is kind of not very new. What's really new for this festival is that Russian immigrants are making films, right? So that's the kind of the new chapter in that development. So, and this is why this festival has been screening these films.
Well, it's gonna happen more and more in Israel, and I think it's already happening, as you've shown here in the short movies, because short movies in Israel are also, unlike in the United States, they're getting sort of a stage of their own. They have more festivals. They're shown in theaters recently. There's been a group of 3 Israeli movies shown in theaters. So I think as that medium is more accessible to everyone, really, you don't need to go through the funds. You see more and more Russian immigrants and all of demographics in Israel hearing their voice more through shorts, through documentaries, and seeing them there. As for fiction, you're right. I can't think. I can barely conjure up a movie made by a Russian immigrant from recent years, except for Leon Podolsky, which you mentioned. But I'm sure it'll happen soon.
Yeah, this is why we don't really have this, in our festival this year. But we hope maybe next year it will be more of them.
I really like the idea that filmmakers of Broccoli, the film, were trying to understand the generation of their parents. At first I was shocked because I didn't feel that I belonged to the generation of the parents. I created this story, and I kind of, it was loosely based on my experience when I first came to the US, and I was 22 then. And I kind of remained, along with my character, frozen at that age. And then after I thought about it, I realized that yes, I am the parent now, and my kids are about the same age as the filmmakers and the actors. So I think it's a great bridge between generations. Maybe a generation of the parents to which I belong came and created something in the more ancient form of art, like writing fiction. And then younger generation jumped in and created something in a newer, more exciting form, like film.
Yeah, you mentioned this idea of a bridge, and that's really, I think, was my defining process of making this film and my motivation, because not only was this about my parents' generation, but everything in it, and every way I made it, had to do with them. The clothing, the furniture, the set decorations, the places we shot in. Literally every aspect of this, from the script to the doilies of the table, is related to my parents over here.
Nice.
I think there came a time when I was a teenager in high school, I started reading more, and I saw films by this Israeli filmmaker, Ari Kaplan. who was making films about the immigrant experience for Russians in Israel. And I think around that time I realized, my own family's stories, it's more than just stuff for our family dinner table. It has resonance beyond, with all its cultural specificity of what it means to be Russian and Jewish in America or in Israel. And I thought that there was an audience and that there was a hole there in the market. I don't want to say market, but there was a hole there in the landscape of film. And obviously, this film got great laughs from our Russian audience today, but it gets equally good response from American audiences as well.
So yeah, just going off of that, the different responses, I was pleasantly surprised at how many laughs the film got, and it was the first time that I realized that it's kind of funny. Sad, but funny. And it just reminded me of what a crazy, joyous, and sad, and complicated sort of culture we come from. And I'm an immigrant, I guess. I was born in Italy on the way, so it's kind of weird. But, I know that that's always been in me, this Russian Jewish, or now Ukrainian Jewish, but Russian speaking, because it's different now, you have to say that. But yeah, it was such a great experience, and I had tried to write myself about my family, and once wrote a one-act play that was never produced that George read, and he really liked it. It's called Mother Russia, and it's about the women in my family and our interactions with each other. And yeah, I've been reading, Gary Steinhardt's Super Sad True Love Story, and I'm going to be reading his Little Failures soon, and I went to his book reading, and it's just doing all of this is bringing back the passion in me for the culture, and it makes me want to, make films about this and be more involved in bringing that to a bigger audience.
I think I really like this film, if go from there. And I think it's very interesting, very talented, how the very young film director as George recreated this situation of Russian immigrant community from the 90s. They really look like the makeup, the dresses, and the all this environment and interior, whatever it is. But also the most important, a kind of sensibility. Very like something which is coming from Russia. What is really fascinating always in these immigrant films, its ability to combine, like Russian cultural and sensibility roots, I would say, with new culture. This is very interesting. And somebody actually told here that they like broccoli because broccoli is like a Stanislavski school, maybe, because the relationship between the people are so elaborated and so sensitive and so it's actually all built on this atmosphere of the sensibility of the human relationship. So this is something very, very interesting. As well as the Lena Chaplin film, she is not here. It's pretty sad, and I think it's sad because also she lost her husband, but also there is a sense of what we call in Russia like Toska without borders, without explanation. This is very old sense of sadness that we brought from Mother Russia. And I'm happy that actually young generation of filmmakers don't have this. Because the other film about the same character, why I put together these voices from the booth and the story about one of these characters, I put together because in one case it's Lena Chaplin, who is representative of the older generation, who really was not just born, but was like, developed, her personality in Russia. And young film director who is much more positive, much more pragmatic, much more like looking in the future and seeing the glass not like half empty but half full, And this is the difference for me between the generations.
Really interesting. So, should we open for Q&A from the audience?
Can I answer?
Yeah, of course.
I have a question to Lara. What do you think was added in the movie comparing to the short story, and what was missing?
I think most interesting thing that was added is Russian language, because the story was originally written in English, and I never attempted to translate. Actually, yes, it came out in Russia, but I think it was in some different translation. So it was very interesting to see, to hear language translated, and not just translated, but kind of put through the mind of these young people, kind of like through a meat grinder, and what came out of it. So that was very interesting.
And if I can just kind of spring off that, in the English story underlying, she's a vegetable lover. I was like, how do you say this in Russian? Like, it doesn't really, you literally say it, it doesn't make any sense. So I came with what is it, spetsbabasha, which is it's a little different, but I guess it carries that humor still. But I remember in the first draft, I was like, I'm not even over shit. And people were like, what are you trying to say? It doesn't make sense. And yeah, I really like, obviously I grew up here, so Russian's not Northern Europe, I think my parents. So I went through a lot to translate this and got a lot of advice. And it went through a process, let me tell you. See, I wanted to bring in poetry and idioms, which I don't have, because I didn't have a Soviet Russian education. So I had to really outsource for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you also wrote like Akhmatova.
Yeah.
Which was like out of
the
blue.
Russian Taska, right?
Russian Taska,
yeah.
Exactly.
But for me, it's very Israeli film. It's really smell and some feeling. It's really film.
But this is we are talking about the American film.
Yeah, I understand, but feeling it's something frame. It's maybe doing in Israel, but it's Jewish film, and this is some kind of tradition from Israel who come here. It's my position. I don't know.
So I noticed you called it a Jewish film, which I think it is. Although I was very deliberate. Nobody is called Jewish there. Nobody lights a Shabbat candle. Nobody wears a kippah. So there was no external obvious factors that it's Jewish, but you still called it a Jewish film, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely Jewish film to me.
While people are still kind of pondering on, about the new questions to come, so let me pick up on something that Dean brought up. So that there is this question of, resources and format, right? That it's true that the new filmmakers or the new voices, right, particularly from maybe minorities, come through, not necessarily like a Hollywood style, feature film with like $100 million budget, right, but a documentary or a personal documentary particularly, right, where today, anyone can like start shooting with more or less the iPhone or through a short. So how did you already alluded to that, George and Anna, right, that you kind of relied on family resources